There's a type of man you recognize just by looking, not by the intensity, not by the color, not by the physical shape of his eyes, but by something that dwells behind them, a presence, a silent strength, a density that cannot be explained with words, but that you feel in your body when you cross paths with him on the street, when he enters a room, when he simply exists in the same space as you. It's as if there were contained fire, but not the kind of fire that burns and destroys, but the kind that forges, that molds, that transforms raw iron into a sharp blade. Have you ever noticed that? Have you ever realized that some men carry in their eyes a depth that seems to come from another place, from another dimension of existence? And have you ever wondered why most men have lost that look? The answer lies in an ancient secret, in a knowledge that Napoleon Hill called sexual transmutation, and that the masters of antiquity knew as internal alchemy. But before we get there, before we unravel this mystery that can completely transform your life, we need to look at the raw truth that no one wants to admit. We live in a society that has taught us to waste the most powerful force that exists within us. A society that has transformed the sacred into pornographic, the transcendent into disposable, the creative fire into ashes of empty pleasure. And the price we pay for this is not only in our physical energy, but in our gaze, in our presence, in our ability to create, to achieve, to magnetize reality around us. When you look at most men today, what do you see in their eyes? Tiredness, dispersion, an opaque mist that covers the soul, as if something essential had been drained from the inside out. It's as if they are always searching for something, always hungry, but never satisfied, always anxious, but never present, always wanting, but never being. Pose is not just the result of modern stress or lack of sleep. This is the direct result of a life force being constantly wasted, ejected, dissipated in compulsive cycles that we don't even recognize as compulsive, because culture has told us that they are normal, natural, even healthy. Napoleon Hill, one of the greatest scholars of human success who ever lived, dedicated an entire chapter of Think and Grow Rich to this topic. And it wasn't by chance. He discovered, through decades of studying the most powerful, most accomplished, and most magnetic men in the world, that they all had something in common. They had learned the art of sexual transmutation. They understood that sexual energy is not just about sex. It is the primordial creative force, the divine spark that dwells in every human being. The same energy that generates life is also the energy that generates ideas, that generates equivalence, that generates empires. But to access this power, to transform this raw force into conscious manifestation, something is needed that our generation has forgotten: self-mastery. Think about it. When a man gives in to compulsive impulses, when he allows sexual energy to be constantly wasted through compulsive masturbation, pornography, empty and unconscious sex, what is happening there is not just a physical act. It's an energy leak. It's as if there were a sacred container inside your body, a chalice that contains the elixir of life. And with each compulsive ejaculation, with each aimless discharge, this chalice is emptied. And this is not about moralism. It is not about religious repression or cultural shame. It is about energetic physics. It is about understanding that everything in the universe is energy, and that sexual energy is one of the most concentrated, most powerful, and most creative forms of energy that exists. The ancient Taoists knew this. They taught that the Jing, the vital essence, should be preserved and cultivated, not wasted. The Tantric yogis knew this. They developed entire practices dedicated to channeling sexual energy up the spine, transforming animal impulse into spiritual consciousness. The medieval alchemists knew this. When they spoke of turning lead into gold, they were not only talking about metals, but about the transmutation of basic and instinctive energy into elevated and transcendent achievement. And Napoleon Hill rediscovered this knowledge by observing the titans of industry, the geniuses of science, the leaders who changed the world. They had all learned to redirect this force. But what happens when you waste this energy constantly? What happens when you give into the impulse whenever it appears, when you seek quick pleasure, when you live enslaved by desire, without ever questioning it? First, you lose vitality. That force that should be feeding your nervous system, nourishing your brain, strengthening your presence, is being ejected outwards. You wake up tired. You live in mental fog. You feel like something is missing, but you can't identify what. Second, you lose clarity. The mind becomes clouded. Thoughts become scattered. The ability to focus and concentrate dissolves. Third, and perhaps most importantly, you lose the look, that inner glow, that magnetic depth, that presence that makes people stop and pay attention when you walk into a room simply disappears. Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine a man who has understood this principle. A man who has consciously decided not to waste this force, but to channel it, direct it, transmute it into purpose. What happens inside him is a real alchemy. Sexual energy, when not constantly released through compulsive discharges, begins to rise. It doesn't stay repressed, it doesn't stagnate, causing frustration or neurosis, as many believe. It transforms. It raises up the spine, nourishing the nervous system, feeding the brain, awakening dormant centers of consciousness. This energy becomes creativity, it becomes focus, it becomes charisma, it becomes magnetic presence. And this is where the look changes. When you retain this energy and consciously channel it, something happens in your eyes. They become brighter, more present, deeper. People feel it. They can't explain it, but they feel it. It's as if you carry an existential density that most men lack. You walk into a room and people notice, not because you are trying to attract attention, but because you are simply truly present, fully inhabiting your body, fully connected to the life force that flows through you. This is the magnetism that Napoleon Hill described. This is the power that great leaders, artists and visionaries have always had. It is not an aggressive power. It is not a power that dominates by brute force. It is a power that attracts, that inspires, that transforms environments just by its presence. But let me be clear, we are not talking about repression. Repression is when you deny the desire, when you push it under the rug, when you pretend it doesn't exist. This creates frustration, neurosis, uncontrolled explosions. What we are talking about is conscious transmutation. It is recognizing the desire when it arises, but instead of reacting automatically, you observe. You feel the energy, you allow it to exist within you, but you don't waste it. You redirect it. You redirect it. You channel it into your creation, into your work, into your art, into your mission. You transform it into productive force. This requires practice. This requires awareness. This requires you to look at your compulsive patterns with brutal honesty. Why do you resort to pornography? Why do you seek masturbation whenever you feel anxiety, boredom, loneliness? What are you really trying to feel? What emptiness are you trying to plug? Because, you see, sexual desire itself is not the problem. Desire is natural, it is vital, it is sacred. The problem is when that desire becomes an escape mechanism, when it becomes a compulsion that you use to avoid feeling what is really happening inside you. When you use quick pleasure to escape from pain, frustration, existential emptiness, you are only postponing the confrontation with yourself. And while you postpone the confrontation, you continue to drain the force that you could be using to build the life you really want. And here is the truth that no one wants to hear: you are not free while you are a slave to your impulses. You may think you are doing what you want, that you are exercising your freedom, but if you can't go a week, a day, a few hours without giving in to the impulse, then you are not in control. The impulses is in control of you, and this is reflected in all areas of your life. If you don't have self-mastery over your sexual energy, you probably don't have self-mastery over your food, your money, your time, your emotions. Everything is connected. The way you deal with sexual energy is the way you deal with life. Napoleon Hill realized that the most successful men had one thing in common. They had developed what he called self-mastery. They were not controlled by external circumstances, nor by internal impulses. They had learned the art of using energy instead of being used by it, and sexual energy was the key, because it is the most powerful, most primitive, most intense energy. If you can master the energy, you can master anything. If you cannot master the energy, you will be mastered by it, and consequently by everything else in life. Think about the men you admire. Think about those who have built something meaningful, who have created immortal works, who have led movements, who have transformed entire sectors of reality. Look them in the eyes, and in all photographs, in interviews, in videos. Do you see that depth, that inner glow, that unwavering presence? It's no coincidence. Most of them, consciously or not, have learned to channel sexual energy into creative fulfillment. They didn't repress it, but they didn't waste it either. They transmuted it. And if you're listening to me now and feeling resistance, if something inside you is saying that's an exaggeration, or that's impossible, or he can't do it, pay attention. That resistance is precisely the ego's defense mechanism that wants to keep you in the comfortable pattern, even if that pattern is draining you. The ego prefers the familiar pain to the discomfort of the unknown. It prefers to keep you in controlled compulsion than to free you to the unknown of your true potential. But if you really want to transform your life, if you really want to access the power that exists within you, you will need to overcome this resistance. You will need to look at your shadow. The shadow, in Jungian psychology, is everything we deny in ourselves, everything we push into the unconscious because into the uncomfortable, shameful, or threatening. And for most men, compulsive sexuality is deeply intertwined with the shadow. It is connected with wounds of rejection, with fear of inadequacy, with need for validation, with emotional voids that have never been filled. When you seek compulsive sexual pleasure, it is often not for the pleasure itself, but because you are trying to medicate an emotional pain that you don't know how to process otherwise. So true sexual transmutation begins with deep self-knowledge. It starts with you asking yourself, what am I really seeking when I seek this pleasure? What part of me is hungry? What part of me is thirsty? What void am I trying to fill? And when you begin to answer these questions honestly, when you begin to look at these voids not with judgment, but with compassion and awareness, something changes. You stop using sexuality as an escape and start using it as a portal for transformation. And at this point in the journey, you need to say something important to you who are here, who are listening to these words and feeling something resonate in your soul. If this message is touching you, if something inside you is awakening, if you feel that there is a truth here that you need to explore more deeply, then you are part of a rare tribe. You are part of those who are not satisfied with superficiality, who do not accept living on autopilot, who really want to awaken the sleeping giant within themselves. And if you want to continue this journey with me, if you want to receive more content that delves deep into psychology, philosophy, and spirituality applied to real transformation, then subscribe now to this channel and activate the notification bell. Because what we are building here is not just entertainment, it is not just information. It is a community of men and women who are committed to conscious evolution, to inner alchemy, to transmuting their own lives into a work of art. Each video I create is designed to awaken something in you, to challenge your limiting beliefs, to give you real tools for transformation. And you won't want to miss any of these pieces of the puzzle. So click the subscribe button now, activate the bell, and let's continue this journey together. Because what lies ahead is even deeper, even more transformative. Now, back to our narrative. When you start to consciously retain and transmute sexual energy, one of the first things that happens is an intense confrontation with yourself. Because this energy, when it is not being constantly released, begins to illuminate everything within you. It acts like a spotlight that reveals all the dark corners of the psyche. You begin to feel anxieties that were dormant. You begin to notice patterns that were automatic. You begin to see the masks you wear, the lies you tell yourself, the fears that govern you. And this is not comfortable. This is, in fact, one of the most challenging phases of the journey. Many men give up at this point. They begin to retain energy, begin to feel the intensity increase, begin to confront the shadows, and instead of going through, they retreat. They return to the escape valve of quick pleasure because it is easier than facing what is being revealed. And this is understandable. But those who go through, those who endure the intensity, those who consciously choose to remain with the discomfort and transform it, this discover something extraordinary on the other side. Real freedom. Because when you go through this phase, when you integrate the shadows, when you stop running away from yourself, sexual energy ceases to be a force that controls you and becomes a force that you command. And then you experience something that few men in modern society experience. You become master of yourself. You become sovereign of your own inner kingdom. And that internal sovereignty is reflected externally in everything. In your ability to maintain focus for hours on end. In your ability to create without distraction. In your ability to be present with people without being mentally somewhere else. In your ability to make decisions aligned with your deepest values, and not with momentary impulses. And the look transforms completely. It becomes the mirror of your integrated soul. When you look at someone, you are truly present. You are not looking through the person, lost in compulsive thoughts. You are not analyzing superficially, objectifying, projecting fantasies. You are seeing the real person. And people feel that. They feel that you see them. And this creates an instant connection, a natural magnetism. It's not manipulation. It's not technique. It's simply the power of authentic presence. Napoleon Hill wrote that men who master sexual transmutation develop what I call sex appeal or personal magnetism, but not in the superficial sense that we use it today. He was talking about an attraction that goes beyond the physical, an attraction that emanates from inner vitality, from fullness, from integration. When you are full of vital energy, when you are not constantly leaking through compulsions, you become naturally attractive. People want to be near you. They want to hear what you have to say. They trust you instinctively. And this opens doors in all areas of life, in business, in relationships, in leadership, in artistic creation. But there is something even deeper happening here. Sexual energy, when transmuted, not only increases your external magnetism, it also deepens your connection with the sacred. Because this energy, in its purest essence, is the force of creation. It is the same energy that creates a child, that creates a work of art, that creates a company, that creates a social movement. When you learn to work consciously with this energy, you are literally participating in the creative process of the universe. You become a co-creator of reality. And here is something that few understand. True sexual transmutation does not mean never having sex or never ejaculating. It means having conscious control over when and how you use that energy. It means that sex, when it happens, is not a compulsion, but a conscious choice. It is an expression of love, of connection, of shared creation. And even in sexual intimacy, when you have learned to transmute an energy, the experience becomes radically different. It becomes deeper, more intense, more connected, because you are not just seeking relief from tension. You are sharing a life force. You are creating an energy field with another person. You are participating in something sacred. The ancient tantrists knew this. They developed sexual practices where orgasm was not the goal, but rather the circulation and expansion of energy between partners. They understood that when you ejaculate, you release an energy outward, you complete the cycle, you return to the previous state. But when you learn to circulate this energy without necessarily ejaculating, when you learn to expand pleasure throughout the body, instead of concentrating it only in the genitals, you enter altered states of consciousness. You experience ecstasies that go far beyond momentary physical pleasure. You touch spiritual dimensions of existence. But again, this requires practice. This requires discipline. This requires you to be willing to unlearn everything that pornography and popular culture have taught you about sex. Because pornography teaches you that sex is performance. It's a quick release. It's objectification. It's consumption. And when you consume pornography compulsively, you are training your brain to associate pleasure with disconnected images, with artificial stimuli, with unreal fantasies. You are literally reconfiguring the neural circuits of desire. And this not only affects your sexuality, but affects your ability to feel pleasure with real things, to connect with real people, to be present in real life. So part of sexual transmutation is to detox completely. It's cutting out pornography. It's stopping compulsive masturbation. It's cleaning up the neural circuits so that they can reconnect with the natural, with the real, with the sacred. And the first days, the first weeks of this detox are difficult. you will feel withdrawal. You will feel restlessness. You will feel an almost unbearable urge to return to the old pattern. And it is at this moment that you need to remember why you are doing this. You're doing this to reclaim your power. You are doing this to become the master of yourself. You are doing this to awaken the giant that has been sleeping inside you. And as the days go by, as you endure the intensity and redirected energy, something extraordinary begins to happen. You begin to feel more. You begin to notice details that previously went unnoticed. The colors seem more vivid. The sounds seem richer. The flavors seem more intense. It's as if you've spent your entire life with dull senses, and now they are finally awakening. And this is not imagination. It is the direct result of you stopping to constantly drain your life force. It is the result of you being truly present. And the look becomes a beacon. You look at the world with new eyes. Eyes that see beyond the surface. Eyes that penetrated the heart of things. Eyes that carry the wisdom of someone who crossed the abyss and returned transformed. And people see this. They can't explain it, but they know that there's something different about you. They know that you're not like the masses. They know that you carry something precious, something rare, something that awakens in them also a desire for transformation. Napoleon Hill observed that many of the great men studied went through periods of celibacy or deliberate sexual abstinence, especially during intense phases of creation. They understood, intuitively or consciously, that in order to give birth to something great, they needed to conserve and concentrate all their energy. Thomas Edison, Henry Ford, Andrew Carnegie, they all had periods where they completely isolated themselves and channeled all their life force into accomplishing the work. And the result, inventions that changed the world, companies that defined eras, legacies that remain centuries later. You have this inside you too. You have this strength, this energy, this potential. But to access it, you need to stop leaking it. You need to stop treating it as if it were ordinary, as if it were just an impulse to be satisfied. You need to start recognizing it for what it really is. The most powerful force in the universe concentrated within your body. And when you do that, when you honor that force, when you treat it with reverence and direct it with intention, you become unstoppable. But let's also talk about the real challenges, because this journey is not a fairy tale. There will be days when you will stumble. There will be days when you will stumble. There will be moments when the compulsion will seem stronger than your will. There will be nights when you will give in to the impulse and then feel that familiar wave of shame, guilt, weakness. And in these moments, it is crucial that you do not sink into self-flagellation. Guilt serves no purpose. Shame transforms nothing. What you need to do is get up, observe the pattern, understand what led to the relapse, and start over with more awareness. Because this journey is not about perfection. It's about progress. It's about progress. It's about consciously choosing transmutation over dissipation each day. It's about strengthening your willpower muscle a little more each week. It's about more deeply integrating the knowledge that you are more than your impulses each month. And as you progress, as you accumulate days and weeks and months of conscious practice, you realize that the compulsion loses strength. It doesn't disappear completely, but it no longer has that absolute power over you. It becomes just another voice among many in your mind, and no longer the dominant voice. And then you reach a turning point, a point where you realize that you are no longer fighting yourself. You are no longer suppressing anything. You simply choose. And the choice comes from clarity, not effort. You choose to channel the energy because you feel, in your body, in your mind, in your soul, that this is the choice that strengthens you. You choose to create instead of consume. You choose to build instead of destroy. You choose to ascend instead of descend. And when you live in this state, when you inhabit this frequency, your look becomes unmistakable. It carries the mark of the inner warrior who faced his own demons and emerged victorious. It carries the light of consciousness that crossed the darkness and discovered that darkness was only the absence of light. It carries the depth of the being who no longer runs away from himself, but fully inhabits every inch of his own existence. And here is the final truth, the revelation that closes the circle. Sexual transmutation is not the end, it is the beginning. It is the gateway to a type of life that most people don't even imagine is possible. It is the key that unlocks the portal to your true power, to your true creativity, to your true purpose. Because when you master this force, when you learn the internal alchemy of transforming desire into fulfillment, you realize that you can apply this same principle to everything in life. You can transmute fear into courage. You can transmute anger into determination. You can transmute pain into wisdom. You can transmute chaos into order. Sexual transmutation is cost the initial training, the first proof that you are capable of being master of your own inner kingdom. And until you prove this to yourself, until you experience the power of consciously redirecting the most intense energy that exists within you, there are no more limits to what you can achieve. So I ask you, what life do you want to live? The life of the majority, where you are dragged along by impulses, where you are a slave to desires, where you constantly leak your life force into momentary pleasures, and then wonder why you don't have the energy to build your dreams. Or the life of the few, there's you who have chosen the path of the inner warrior, who have decided to face their shadows, integrate their forces, and transmute their sexual energy into purpose, into creation, into legacy. The choice has always been yours. It has always been yours. It has always been in your hands. And the first step is simply, although not easy, decide now, at this moment, that you will start treating your sexual energy as the sacred treasure that it is. Decide that you will no longer waste it compulsively. Decide that you will learn the art of transmutation, even if it takes months or years to master. Decide that you will become the kind of man whose gaze reveals the depth of the soul, the strength of character, the fire of creation. And when you make that choice, when you truly commit to that journey, you will realize that the universe conspires in your favor. Opportunities begin to appear. The right people cross your path. Ideas arise out of nowhere. Synchronicities multiply. Because you are aligned with the fundamental creative force of the cosmos, you are no longer swimming against the current of life, but flowing with it, directing it, shaping it, creating with it. The people around you will notice the change, even without understanding exactly what has changed. They will comment that you look different, that there is something about you that they can't define, but that attracts them. And you will smile inside, because you will know exactly what it is. It's the accumulated and transmuted life force. It's the sexual energy channeled for purpose. It's the inner warrior fully awakened and sovereign. And as you leave from this place, as you inhabit this frequency, you will begin to attract into your life everything that is aligned with this higher vibration. You will attract business opportunities that didn't appear before. You will attract relationships that were not possible before. You will attract synchronicities that don't seem like magic, because you are vibrating at a frequency where these things are natural, are expected, are normal. Yeah. And then you will look back at the man you were before you started this journey, and you will feel compassion. Compassion for that being who was lost, who was wasting the most precious treasure he possessed, who was living a tiny fraction of his potential. And you will be grateful for having had the courage to start, for having had the discipline to continue, for having had the wisdom to trust the process even when it seemed absurd, impossible, too radical. Because, in the end, this journey of sexual transmutation is a journey back home. It is a journey of return to wholeness. It is a journey of reconnection with the primal force that generated you and that continues to generate you at every moment. You are not becoming something you are not. You are fully becoming what you always were, a being of unlimited power, of infinite creativity, of magnetic presence, of unconditional love. All of this has always been inside you. You just forgot. And now you are remembering. And the look is just the external reflection of that internal memory. When you look at the world with the eyes of someone who remembered their power, who reconnected with their strength, who awakened to their own divinity, the world looks back differently. Opportunities open up. People approach. Paths light up. Because you are no longer seeking outside what can only be found within. You are no longer leaking the energy that you should be using to create your masterpiece. You are finally full, finally present, finally alive. And that, my friend, that changes everything. That radically transforms your experience of being alive on this planet, at this moment, in this body. That gives you access to dimensions of pleasure, of satisfaction, of fulfillment that are impossible to access when you are constantly drained, scattered, disconnected. So the question that closes this circle is simply, are you ready? Ready to stop being just another one in the crowd living on autopilot, enslaved by impulses, draining vital force into empty pleasures? Ready to join the few, the rare, those who have chosen the path of the inner warrior, the path of transmutation, the path of conscious power. The door is open, the invitation is made, the first step is in front of you, just waiting for you to have the courage to take it. And that step is as simple as deciding, now, at this exact moment, from today, I treat my sexual energy as the sacred treasure that it is. From today, I will not waste it anymore. From today, I transmute it into greatness. Take that step and watch how everything transforms. Watch how your look transforms. And through it, watch how the whole world around you transforms too.